Welcome back. Chick-fil-A is famous for more than just their unique sandwiches, waffle fries, and chicken biscuits. They're also famous for being closed on Sundays, as founder S. Truett Cathy decided to keep its doors closed on Sundays for his employees to worship or rest. Oh my! What do people do on Sundays for food? Do they starve? No, they go somewhere else. But lawmakers in New York want to make sure drivers can have Chick-fil-A whenever they want, even on Sundays. The proposed legislation would require food service companies at rest areas and transportation facilities along the New York State Thruway, a nearly 500 miles long stretch of road that connects New York City to Buffalo, to be open 7 days a week. The bill cites any contracts entered into for the operation of food services or food concessions at public transportation facilities owned or operated by the authority shall require that such services be provided every day of the week, the proposed law says. Temporary concessions or events such as farmers markets, flea markets, or local vendors are excluded from the bill. Oh, okay. So they can do pop-ups at flea markets. How nice. The lawmaker said, dripping with the saying, while there is nothing objectionable about a fast food restaurant closing on a particular day of the week, service areas dedicated to travelers is an inappropriate location for such a restaurant and an unnecessary inconvenience for travelers. Like there's not another fast food drive-through on the 500-mile stretch, right? What they clearly find objectionable and inconvenient is a business exercising their religious beliefs. Criminal defense attorney and former Morris County prosecutor Bob Bianchi joins me now to react to this. Bob, thanks for being with us. It's great to see you.
Great to see you as well. Bah humbug to this story.
Seriously, come on. I mean, I guess my first question when I heard this story is whether or not this is even constitutional. I guess Chick-fil-A has a choice to not enter a contract that has requirements that don't fit their company. But is it constitutional, Bob, for a government contract to include a term or condition that restricts the company's ability to exercise their religious expression?
You know, let me just start with that. When I read this, it just irritated me to no extent. But, you know, when I read further into it, if it is believed from a legal point of view that this is the rational basis, as they would call it, for this law to make sure that consumers can have food along that highway, and a restaurant, regardless of Chick-fil-A or some other restaurant, decides it wants to contract with the government for that space, does the government have the right, this is the question, to tell them when they can and can't be open? Now, I'll start with the idea that I don't like the government telling private business what they can and can't do, period, full stop, end of story.
Yeah.
The legal issue becomes, but when a business wants to avail itself to a public entity, does the public entity have the right to curtail and limit its operations? And I think the answer to that question legally is yes. And in this case, legally, it would probably be a valid basis for the infringement, so long as it's not couched in terms of religion. And that's not, to my knowledge, how they're couching this bill. They're saying it's not just Chick-fil-A, it's any restaurant that we contract with needs to be open 7 days a week. If a court is to believe that, Allison, long story short, I think it's valid. If they believe it's for a religious reason, then there's a problem.
Wow, very, very interesting. I mean, they can't be the only choice, though, for travelers, right? So isn't the inconvenience more so on Chick-fil-A here?
You know, look, that's a really good question. Like, you know, before you pass legislation, you want to see, they do a thing called legislative intent, where you can look at, like what's the reason for this bill? As a former prosecutor, this used to drive me crazy. I mean, something happens, and it's a terrible thing, and some legislator wants to get in the news, so they pass a draconian law that now we have to live with because of a singular incident that happened and somebody wants to look important. So I want to see what was the real intent. Was this an issue? Wasn't it an issue? Was there a real problem with this? Is it being applied equally to everyone? You need to look at what the intent behind the law is for, you know, constitutional reasons, but from a political point of view, or are you just somehow upset that Chick-fil-A has a policy that they're closed on Sundays and you don't like the idea it's for faith-based reasons? I mean, that's a lot of that, Allison's going to rely on the truth and believability of the person who proposed the law.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Definitely an interesting story. It'll be interesting to see what comes of it all. Bob, let's switch gears to a truly disturbing story that involves a well-known social media influencer. Ruby Frankie's YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, had over 2 million followers. During that time, there were many who questioned her parenting methods after one of her children showed up at a neighbor's house with injuries. She was charged with 6 counts of child abuse. She then tried to convince her 2 youngest children they were evil possessed and needed to be punished to repent. So I think it's safe to say she's a bit of a monster here. She pled guilty on Monday to 4 counts under a plea deal. But how many years is she looking at, and is this severe enough compared to the crimes?
This is aggravated child abuse, and each of those counts that she pled guilty to carries anywhere between 1 to 15 years. So technically, she's looking at anywhere between 4 to 60 years. It's going to be up to the judge in terms of what the ultimate sentence is going to be. I will say this from a prosecutorial standpoint, from a criminal law specialist standpoint. There are some look, any child abuse is bad child abuse, right? Any murder is a bad murder. But when you're in the business, you do see certain cases where you're like, wow, that is just like so over the top compared to what we're used to seeing. And I see that in this case here. We don't have the time to go through the torture psychologically, physically, emotionally, mentally that these children went through at the hands of the person who's supposed to be their protector, is supposed to stand in the way of any harm whatsoever that would ever come to them, up to and including letting their own life be taken for the protection of their children. Of course, this is going to bother us. But I mean, sometimes you see these cases and you see a parent who's just incapable or made a mistake and left the kid in the car or drove under the influence with a child. Bad stuff, right? This was a purposeful, systematic, nonstop, abusive situation that these children, in my mind, will never, it's worse than physical injuries. The emotional stuff, calling them evil. The person who found them, Allison, when the boy was running away, who was handcuffed, rope tied, they used to put cayenne pepper, drown the kid and hold his mouth and his nose so he couldn't breathe. You go on and on. A regular citizen found him in the street and with his voice cracking, calling the police, is saying, I think he's been like bound and held somewhere as a hostage. I get goosebumps when I think about it, and I've been doing this a long time. This is a bad case.
Yeah, it's just highly, highly disturbing. So sad. I have to ask, what about her husband? Yes, they are separated now, but he had to have known, right? I mean, she's now agreeing to testify against her partner, Jody Hildebrand, who she's accused, I guess, of being the mastermind behind all of this. What are your thoughts on this strategy here?
All right, you got this Hildebrand. They have some sort of like business relationship. They were on the YouTube together. Apparently now she's going to be testifying against Hildebrand, saying that she was I'm so sick of listening to this. I'm sorry to you and your audience about people who are influenced. I mean, there's lots of people that can influence you to do things. When you are doing something that harms a child, it's just unacceptable to me, and I don't get it. So apparently now she's going to testify against Hildebrand. What about her husband? I don't see anything in the records to indicate at all that he was involved or whatever. But to your point, these things were happening systematically and long-term inside the home. So I guess prosecutors believe they either, one, didn't have the evidence, or two, he cooperated with them. I just can't find, that's my opinion about what may have happened with him. I just don't know.
I don't know either. It's just so disturbing. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. On that note, let's switch over and talk Walmart, because this is actually hilarious. It cracked me up. A class action suit accusing Walmart of not having fudge and mint in their fudge and mint cookies. I mean, did people seriously think those were actual ingredients? It's not Walmart, not the bakery at the Four Seasons. Come on, people.
I don't know anymore. The caveat emptor, the old Latin phrase, buyer beware. Whenever you're in the middle aisles and you're shopping for something, catch as catch can. Who knows what you're eating? Check the ingredients. I mean, when you're in the middle section, you need to use your due diligence and common sense that you are not getting high quality chocolate to your fudge and some guys outside at a plant picking the mint out and dropping it into the cookies. Okay. I mean, I get about deceptive practices here. But the fact is, they actually got into an argument. I found this really interesting, Allison, right? This is why I love the law. They actually got into a discussion about what fudge is. And the argument here was that it wasn't fudge made from milk. Now, I don't even know what fudge is made. I get a fudge cookie, I expect it to taste like fudge, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure how I know it. But the argument here was by the company was that, well, it may not be made of milk, but it's made of oil. And the court literally said, it didn't say it was milk fudge. It didn't say how the fudge was made, and it does taste like fudge. Therefore, it's not a violation. You either got to love the law when your audience hears us. They're either going to love the law or hate it. I don't know.
Wow, that's an incredible story. You know it's a good day when you're arguing about fudge, all right? Bob, we are all out of time for today, but thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoy lots of fudge this Christmas and have a very Merry Christmas, Bob. Thanks so much.
Merry Christmas to you. Thank you.
Care.
Blessings.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.